Population and urbanisation are on the rise, and that piles the pressure on industry to produce everything that we want and need.
And all of this takes energy. Welcome to a new season of the show that explores a better way of using energy.
Fashion, fast food and phones, just a few of the products that we rely on to keep up to date with our modern lives.
But for industry to keep up, it takes a lot of energy.
In this episode, we're going to meet committed and innovative industrialists who have their designs set on a sustainable energy future.
Coming up, we join the slow fashion movement. We take to the skies for a fresh perspective on farming, plus we check our mobile devices in a radical new way.
In the meantime, I met up with industrial energy expert Professor Steve Evans from the University of Cambridge for a unique take on production status quo and a sneak peek at what's in the pipeline.
But first, let's take a look at some facts and figures. In 2017, global energy demand increased by almost 2%, the fastest rise this decade, driven by economic growth and changes in consumer behaviour. The world could have saved 16% of industry electricity use if all countries had used the highest standard of electric motor. The volume of water consumed by the fashion industry today is nearly 79 billion cubic metres, nearly enough to fill 32 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. Fast fashion is everywhere, but in the Netherlands, innovative fashionistas are slowing down the pace of the catwalk. Mud Jeans make premium jeans from organic cotton and between 23 to 40% post-consumer recycled denim. Throughout its supply chain, it prioritises energy-efficient production techniques and the use of renewable energy sources. Its products are designed to last and then to be reused and recycled. This circular business model saves vast energy in an antidote to fast fashion's linear model of take, make and waste.
Energy efficiency is very high up on our agenda. We do this through prioritizing energy-efficient production processes and supply chain partners. For example, our fabric mill, Teros Royo, they have an energy generation system at place in their factory, which uses the steam from the production lines to produce energy through a steam turbine. And this system allows them to be 100% self-sufficient with regards to energy, which is pretty amazing. The company is also committed to clean manufacturing. At its Ustex International factory in Tunisia, where the jeans are stitched and washed, they have eliminated PP spray, a toxic chemical which gives denim a distressed look. Instead, they use cradle-to-cradle or C2C indigo dye, and their factory recycles 95% of its water through reverse osmosis. A conventional pair of jeans can use up to 7,000 litres of water in production. Mud Jeans uses 78% less water throughout its life cycle compared with industry standards. The majority of this reduction is thanks to using fabrics with recycled cotton, which also allows the company to avoid the use of insecticides and pesticides and save garments from landfill.
What makes Mud Jeans special is that we are the one and only circular denim brand in the world. That means that we take back old jeans and make new jeans out of them. We make sure that the way we make the jeans and the way we treat them in the washing, we don't use chemicals or water. We use laser techniques and ozone techniques, so that means the yarns remain strong. They're not harmed by the chemicals. And in that way, we believe and we found out that our jeans last longer.
The company clearly prioritises sustainability and energy efficiency so that their jeans do not cost the earth.
We can make jeans today already of 40% recycled cotton. If everybody would do that, you would save 10 billion kilos of cotton. And I'm not even talking about all the water and the chemicals and the people that are hurt by using these chemicals and insecticides and the bees. It's huge, really large.
The company is so committed to going against the grain of wasteful fast fashion that they offer free repairs. And if customers are not confident they want to commit to buying a pair of jeans, they can lease them.
First, of course, we said you can also make a kind of a deposit. So when you bring back an old pair of jeans, you get a €10 discount. That's okay, that's a nice way of getting your jeans back. But the more spectacular thing, and that's also been picked up very much by the press, was let's make a leasing concept where you pay $750 a month for 12 months, and then you can decide whether to keep them longer or send them back to us, and we promise that we will use the raw material again.
It remains to be seen if energy efficiency in fashion is a trend which will catch on across the catwalks, or if innovations such as recycled denim are destined to be a niche drop in the ocean.
Professor Steve Evans is Director of Research at the Institute for Manufacturing at the University of Cambridge. Steve is also Director of Research in Industrial Sustainability at the EPSRC Centre for Innovative Manufacturing. Steve, we're here in the heart of Northumberland, in the northeast of England, at a centre that celebrates the historical use of land in this area. And we're going to talk a lot more about that as we go on, but maybe we could start with you telling us who you are, what it is that you do.
I'm Director of Research in Industrial Sustainability. I work at the Institute for Manufacturing in the University of Cambridge. We're researchers. We like going into factories. We understand and love the outputs of those factories, the products that make everyday life so wonderful. But we want to learn how to do that in a way that doesn't pollute.
And we're nowhere near Cambridge right now, so what are we doing here, Steve?
This is a place where we gather once a year to take people on what we call a brain holiday. We want them to keep thinking, but we want them to think away from their very narrow research, teaching people how to solve a problem by looking at it from different perspectives.
Is the clothing industry somewhere where you can see sustainability moving forward?
Well, the clothing industry is recognized as possibly the second most polluting industry globally. It knows this, and it's energetic in trying to change it. It's a very convoluted industry, though. The brands don't own their own factories, so their ability to influence what the factories do, how they create pollution in their local water, air, and land, is difficult. But you can see that many of the brands that you and I know about, the clothes that we're wearing, they're becoming more and more sustainable every year.
How can the clothing industry become more sustainable?
Well, the first thing it has to do is learn how to make all of these lovely clothing without using quite as much energy as it uses today. A lot of our research is helping us identify how much less energy would it take to make that lovely jumper you're wearing, for example. And we believe that you could probably make that jumper for 20% of the energy that it takes today. So we've got to get on that journey.
So when you look at, think about a sustainable factory, what would that look like?
A sustainable factory would be one that produces the products that we want, but the air coming out of that factory would be cleaner than the air going in. The water coming out would be cleaner than the water going in. The soil that was used to create the products, the raw materials that was coming into that factory, that soil would get healthier every year. That's a sustainable factory.
And in terms of energy waste?
If you are going to make that air cleaner, you've got to do that in a way that uses the least amount of energy possible. Then that energy can come from a renewable source, and therefore the air remains clean.
So if we can already make goods and services in a sustainable way, why is that not yet the norm?
Most factories and industries around the world are pushing very hard to make sure that their products arrive to consumers at the lowest possible cost. You love them for doing that for you. Unfortunately, it means that they're really focusing hard on labor productivity and capital productivity, and they've put less attention on things like energy productivity. With 200 years of not tackling energy productivity, that gives them a really juicy thing to squeeze, and if they do tackle it, they can go a long way very quickly.
When you tuck into that plate of salad, do you ever think about how much energy it took to grow that lettuce, let alone get it to your plate? In Massachusetts, there are plans to take energy efficiency in farming to giddy new heights. Crop One Holdings, based in Millis in the USA, is working with Emirates Flight Catering to build the largest vertical farm in the world in Dubai, measuring 130,000 square feet. The aim of the $40 million venture is to produce 3 US tons of high-quality, herbicide and pesticide-free leafy greens, harvested daily using 99% less water than outdoor fields, all for in-flight catering. Given that the farm will run parallel to the runway at Dubai Airport, the produce can be delivered to the airplane within hours of harvest, maintaining the food's nutritional value and reducing carbon emissions associated with transport.
Vertical farming basically allows us to grow our food where we eat it and when we want to eat it. And the vertical piece of it is the fact that we're not growing just in a single layer of land, but stacking growing shelves one on top of the other.
Crop One Holdings has already built up a successful business in the USA with its Fresh Box Farms brand, which has produced 9 different leafy green retail products, serving 28 different supermarkets and home delivery services in the Boston area since 2015.
Most field-grown produce is grown in soil, and we don't use any soil. We only use water as our growth medium. That means that we can have quite precise control on the nutrients. Plants are greedy. If you plant them in soil and you spray them with fertilizer, they'll take up as much of that as they wish. That means that a salad that is ostensibly very healthy, a field-grown alternative can have as much nitrate as bacon. Our product has 1/600th the bacteria when it leaves our farm of comparable washed field-grown product.
Sophisticated plant science and the latest technology optimizes crop yields.
Being indoors, you have the ability to control all the environmental variables, for example, temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide levels that we feed to the plant. And having control over those variables means that you can control the way that the plants grow. The second thing is that you can grow at very high density, and so that leads to a very high output for the same amount of growth area.
So, with the potential to grow more produce in less space, using significantly less energy and water, and deliver produce speedily, could vertical farming one day make traditional agriculture a thing of the past?
We get 32 harvests a year on average, and a field-based farmer will get 1 or 2.
Any crop that we grow, the utilization is virtually 100%, and that is every seed that we sow generates a plant that's completely consumed. Because it's a controlled environment, we don't get losses due to seasonality, to weather, and that sort of thing.
The goal is for Emirates to have its own supply chain. High quality and locally sourced fresh vegetables, especially for in-flight catering. With these plans well underway, it certainly looks like other farmers will have to go to great lengths to compete with this particular foray into energy-efficient farming.
Steve, in this part of the exhibition, we're looking at historical ways of producing food on the land around here. And we've just seen a piece about Crop One Holdings working with Emirates, looking particularly at vertical farming. Can you tell us a bit more about vertical farming?
Well, the display might be historical. It might also be futuristic. Imagine each of these is a field on top of each other, and then you package that down into something that's 2 meters square by 2 meters square. That's vertical farming. You can go inside a greenhouse and get layers and layers of food being produced one above the other.
What are some of the challenges and opportunities that presents?
In a world where there's a large number of people and they're becoming increasingly prosperous and they want to eat more and more rich diets, we have to learn how to grow the food with the land that's available. The world isn't expanding. So we're going to go vertical simply because of that need. Now, when you're under controlled conditions, that's great for the efficiency of production, but it does mean that you're creating an artificial environment. You're not relying on nature as much, so you've got to find the water from somewhere. You've got to find the energy from somewhere to make that system work.
Let's discuss the relationship between energy waste and food production.
Oh, the famous nexus of food. The biggest problem with food is that 50% of edible food is not eaten. This is the problem that we need to solve before all other problems. Imagine if all of the food that we grow, we actually eat, we've halved the energy demand instantly. So we need to do that before we bring about the energy efficiencies in the food production system.
As a consumer, making choices is quite problematic in this area. With food, for example, I can see on the labels how much sugar there is, how much salt there is, but there doesn't seem to be a labelling system that helps me make sustainable choices.
And if I was to invent it, you would probably hit me because it would be bigger than the product. It would be longer than the carrot. And you're not going to be willing to read so much complex information. So what we are seeing emerging very rapidly now are apps that are coming onto your smartphone. You'll scan the product and it'll give you a story about that product. It'll know your personal preferences. If you're very worried about the conditions of the workers, it'll show you a video from that factory. If you're very worried about water, it'll tell you a story about the water usage of that product.
What can we as individuals do to encourage industry to become more energy efficient?
If you work in a factory, go in tomorrow and ask the question, are we delivering 8% energy efficiency every year? Did we do it last year and can we do it next year? That's the benchmark. You should be able to obtain that. If your parents work in a factory, ask them to invite you in. We take school children into factories and they can find energy efficiency savings. So it engages everyone in the workplace. That's a fantastic choice. If you're a consumer, ask the people who supply your product, what is the energy efficiency of this, please? It won't do anything on that day, but the noise will creep back through marketing and it will eventually change that company's behavior.
Lots that we can do and lots more to come from Steve as well later on in the show. But first, maybe you thought you knew about industrial sustainability. Here's one common misconception.
You thought you knew? Think again. Myth. Multinationals that mass produce will never be able to claim they are sustainable. Fact. Multinationals, like companies, are working towards a more sustainable future. Multinationals are conscious that switching to zero-emission production and using sustainable crops may adversely affect the company's costs, so extra effort is necessary to convince investors to back this move. One way of doing so could be to fuel operations by using cost-effective, sustainable energy. IKEA Group now owns more wind turbines than stores and aims to become energy independent by producing as much renewable energy as consumed through operations by 2020. We expect to do everything with a simple swipe of our smartphones, from shopping to dating. So how about swiping our way to energy efficiency? In Finland, there's an innovative plan afoot to revolutionise the base station products behind our beloved devices. Until now, base stations for mobile devices have mostly used air cooling, but the fans are far from energy efficient. That's why Nokia has recently come up with an innovative solution that looks set to get the mobile industry buzzing: replace the air cooling fans with liquid cooling.
Traditionally, base stations have been cooled by air, and this Nokia innovation is now using liquid as a cooling. Liquids are about 4,000 times more effective media to transfer heat out from the base station compared to air. And because of that, we don't need any more cooling systems like aircon and fan units, and we are able to reduce the energy consumption by about 30%. And in addition, we can reduce the CO2 emissions up to 80%. As a bonus, we also get the silent base station because we don't have any more aircon and fan units.
So, why is it time to ring the changes? When fans are installed in telecom rooms, air ventilation is a must, and this, of course, ups the site's energy consumption. In fact, the cooling energy accounts for anything from 15 to 50% of the total site energy consumption. Plus, the fans are extremely noisy and distribute the cool air unevenly. To top it all off, the waste heat generated from the base station, around 80% of the total energy used, is not reused.
Here we have one example. This is a unit that has been modified from air cooling to liquid cooling. You can see that the fan units have been removed, and we only have two liquid inlet and one outlet. So from the inlet, the cold liquid is going inside the channels and it's cooling the hottest components. Typically we get about 10 to 20 degree reduction in temperature of the component, and each 10 degrees kind of doubles the lifetime of the components. And then the hot liquid will come out from the base station and we are able to reuse it.
The vast quantity of waste heat energy can be reused. The liquid-cooled base station in Helsinki reuses previously wasted heat energy and channels it into heating a whole apartment building. So when it comes to sustainability, it's a far cooler prospect than fan cooling.
Mobile systems, or in general wireless systems, can help us in various industries, not just in our own. So for example, connecting wind farm turbines to be able to control them better, to help energy reduction in transport like cars, etc., to make all kinds of industries more efficient. So this is one of the big goals beyond our own equipment, is to help other industries save energy.
With reduced CO2 emissions, lower energy operating expenses, and the possibility of reusing waste heat energy, is it only a matter of time before the whole mobile industry has energy efficiency on speed dial?
The next thing for the liquid cooling station is, now that we have introduced it in a usable format, which can be used in the field, are testing in various locations to make sure it's about its performance, and also to test the different use cases and how much we actually can really save with it. And then we will also deploy it in other kind of equipment, not just base stations, but for example data centers.
So when it comes to energy efficiency in industry, it certainly looks like mobile devices may be due for an exciting upgrade.
Steve, based on the piece that we've just seen, what part do you think mobile devices might have to play in the future of energy efficiency?
It's already coming. I think the first thing that we're going to see is virtual reality glasses. Instead of your children using them to play games, we're going to be really serious. We're going to be able to look in our factories and see energy flowing everywhere, and we'll know if that energy is being used to add value, we'll like it, and if that energy is not adding value, we have to do something about it. That's the first use. I think the second use is a classical form of social media. We need to use all of the global knowledge that we can. So I believe we'll have engineers going, does anybody else have a Roberts 455 machine? I'm trying to make it energy efficient. Any ideas out there? And we will get helpful answers from Peru to China.
Jumping forward 30 years or so to 2050, what do you expect the energy efficiency landscape to look like then?
Most of the things that we've been already talking about will have been done. So we are going to be using tools to find those last little bits of energy efficiency that are still left out there. But to become energy efficient, we will have to change our way of dealing with materials. So the material choices that we make will become more prominent during that period. We need to purchase and make clothing out of materials that used less energy naturally. That still leaves very challenging industries like cement and steel. And what we're seeing coming out of the labs today all around the world are people inventing new processes whereby we can make aluminium in ways that are 75% less energy intensive, and we're going to need those in place by 2050.
What would your vision be for the future of energy efficiency?
Factories need to be making products that everybody values, offering jobs that are healthy and valuable and well paid, and they need to do that in a way where the air coming out of the factory is cleaner than the air going in, and the water coming out is cleaner than the water going in, and the soil is getting healthier. That's a sustainable factory. If there was such a thing today, you would want that factory as your neighbour.
Now, I know you've worked a lot with politicians in the past. What are the key pieces of advice that you give to policymakers?
I'd like to ask policymakers not to look at average performances, but to look at the variation. And when they meet industrialists, ask them, which is the best factory in your sector and what is the numbers coming out of that factory? And ask them, what was the best day this year for making bread or for making a car? And what was the worst day, and why aren't you doing more of the best days?
Steve, it's been illuminating talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So thanks to industrialists who are committed to innovation, it may just be a matter of time before the fashion, farming and mobile device industries get that sustainable makeover they need.
Join us next time as we draw back the curtain on the researchers who are actors of change.
And if you want to get a question to our next expert, you can do that on Twitter at CNBC Energy using the hashtags AskSE and Sustainable Energy. But that's all we've got time for. So until next time, keep thinking green. Goodbye.
Goodbye.